Life on a boat can be strange to a lot of people who aren't used to the idea. Life on a boat that's out of the water, that can be even stranger. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley podcast. Today I'm sharing 4 questions that my dad had about life on the hard that other people who are not boaters might have as well. Today's episode of the Boat Galley podcast is sponsored by Aquamap, the most advanced navigation app for your tablet or phone. Aquamap allows for easy route planning with overlays from Active Captain and the Waterway Guide. Tide, currents, waypoints, and anchor alarm, it's all here. Upgrading to Aquamap Master brings in all Army Corps of Engineers survey overlays, as well as U.S. notices to mariners and more. It's absolutely invaluable for cruising the ICW and the Bahamas. Find Aquamap. Careful, there's no S at the end of it. It's AQUAMAP, wherever you find your apps. The whole idea of living on the hard is weird enough if you're used to being on a boat. But if you're on the hard, friends might have questions that they aren't quite sure how to ask you. Like some of these. Aren't you worried about the boat falling over? Dad was so worried about this. He asked that and he couldn't conceive of how the boat wasn't going to fall over. But no, we're not worried about the boat falling over because the boat is supported by stands on each side, plus some blocks underneath the keel. Each stand is positioned in place and there's a wooden pad, and sometimes there's even a carpet on the wooden pad, screwed tightly to the hull. The stands, there are pairs, so there are some on either side of the boat, and they're held together by chains, which means that it would be really tough for a stand to slip out away from the hull. Certainly, Jeremy will go around and tighten the stands. If it looks like we're going to have wind, he goes around and tightens the stands. If he knows he has to go up the mast or I've got to go up the mast, he goes around and tightens the stands to make sure that they haven't shifted or gotten loose if the ground has gotten wet and the stands have sunk into them or whatever. But we're not worried about falling over because the stands are there. We've actually been on the hard during an earthquake. We were on the hard in Trinidad a number of years ago when an earthquake came through. It was definitely weird and definitely disconcerting, but the stands did their job. And yes, Jeremy went down and tightened them all up after the earthquake came through. Another thing people can't fathom and understand is how high we are off the ground. Our keel, we draw 5 feet. Well, we've got another 5 feet above the waterline, so that we're 10 feet off the ground when we're on the hard. You mean you have to climb a ladder all the time? Yes. Yep. We live in the boat. We do everything on the boat, like cooking, cleaning up, sleeping. We do go down and use the head in the yard. We use the yard bathroom for toilet and shower facilities, but that means that anytime we want to make food, sleep, grab a tool that we forgot that's on board, or any one of any number of reasons, we need to climb the ladder. Also, when we want to work on the ground or go to the bathroom in the yard, we have to climb down the ladder. So, as you might imagine, this makes transporting items up and down just a tiny bit tricky. When we moved aboard and had to move the fridge up, that's why I emptied the fridge first, because it was pretty heavy. And when I have to fill water tanks, I'm using 6-gallon jerry jugs. And yeah, they have to go up the ladder. 6 gallons of water weighs an awful lot. We are very careful. We concentrate hard. It takes a long time to go up and down the ladder because I'm paying attention, because falling off is not something that I want to do. Okay, so what do you do about the bathroom in the middle of the night? You've talked about how you don't have a bathroom on the boat yet, and we don't have a head set up on the boat. And even if we did, the head on the boat is flushed with salt water or water that we happen to be floating in. So what do you do about the bathroom in the middle of the night? Because no, I'm not interested in climbing down the ladder, sleepy in the middle of the night, and walking the 100 yards down to the yard bathroom. Not going to do it. So what do? We use a bucket. We plop a bucket into the cockpit and use that as needed, just at night, because during the day we're up and down all the time and it's not that big of a deal to walk down to the yard bathroom. It does mean that the bucket needs to be emptied every morning, which means we carefully carry it, now with some added liquid that we don't really want to spill, down the ladder, march it to the bathroom, and carefully pour it into the land toilet. Sorry, that's just reality for how we go. There are many people who have composting toilets and they don't have this concern. And there are people who use pressurized freshwater systems to flush the toilet even when they're on the hard, even when they're in the water. And neither one of those scenarios is one that we're planning on for this particular refit. So in the hard, in the middle of the night, yep, we got a bucket. We also have a bucket for the sink, which is kind of bizarre in that we have a hole that goes through the boat. It's a through hole that connects our sink to the drain. And we don't really want the water that is being used as we're doing our dishes. We don't want that to go directly out and down onto the ground right outside the boat. It would attract all kinds of stuff. There's grease and coffee grounds and that sort of thing in there. And we don't particularly want it to just splash right down. So what we have done is we've hooked up a hose, a just short length of hose, to the through hull, and we direct the hose that's into the bucket that's right underneath it. And then we empty the bucket once or twice a day just to make sure that it doesn't get overfull. And there it goes. And we can spread it out. It goes into different places in the woods, and it's all fine and dandy. But for us, besides those few things, yes, we're up in the air. We're not worried about the boat falling over. We are working up and down a ladder. We are dealing with buckets that we wouldn't normally be dealing with. But other than that, we live pretty much the same way. We cook, we clean, we sleep, we get our tools and our clothes out from wherever they happen to be stored when we need them. We sip sundowners while we're walking in the yard. We drink coffee in the cockpit while listening to the birds. And yeah, we're very much looking forward to being afloat again. It is much nicer to not be dealing with ladders and buckets. But you know what? It means that we're going to be able to get out there and be cruising and sharing an anchorage with you. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. We love it when we hear from our listeners. There's actually a link to our emails in the show notes. We also love it when you leave us a great review, and we love it when you share us with your friends. Have the most spectacular week.